So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Yahya Mgawe, and I think we'll have everybody reintroduce themselves and pronounce their names correctly because I'm going to get that wrong. And he's from the Fisheries and Education and Training Agency in Tanzania, and he's going to talk to us about fish loss assessments methodologies in Africa. Could you also restart the timer? Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As she has introduced me, my name is Yahya Mgawe. I'm from Tanzania, where I work with the Fisheries Education and Training Agency. I hope you will allow me to speak a different subject. I'll be presenting something about fisheries rather than crops. Before I embark on the presentation, I would like to inform you that on this subject we have a coalition of partners, and therefore this work wasn't a one-man show kind of sort. We had an effort from many different people, and I'm glad that some of them were in here. I want to recognize the presence of Yvette, Jansen Ward, Susanna Jogia, and the others who did it tremendously to come out with this kind of study. My presentation will dwell on 5 main aspects. After the introduction, I will talk about the challenges in post-harvest loss assessment as far as fisheries is concerned, and I will highlight work which has been done in sub-Saharan Africa before highlighting work in progress and concluding the presentation. Well, in fisheries we have several issues, several complicated issues that makes the subsector a bit different from agric. But one of the major issues in Africa as far as fisheries is concerned is the fact that production has reached a plateau. And this is not different from what the global context looks like. If you make reference to the state of fisheries and aquaculture, the report being produced by FAO, you'll find out that global production from capture fisheries has reached a stagnation. And what you can see from that particular graph, it seems as if total catch is increasing, but the dark blue part represents the growth in aquaculture. One thing with the aquaculture development is a good thing, but on the other hand, is using part of the fish being captured from the capture fishery. So part of the fish meal being used to produce the aquaculture produce comes from the capture fishery. And that means it is reducing the amount available for human consumption. And therefore, we have a scenario where the catch, the total catch, has reached a plateau. At the time, the population, the human population, is increasing exponentially, and therefore the demand for fish globally and in Africa is increasing tremendously. And that brings other issues like overcapacity, overfishing, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, environmental degradation, and other things. How can we now increase the volume of fish that can be available for human consumption? Is either to promote aquaculture or capture fisheries in area where the potential still stands to be higher than what is being produced, and a quick fix is to reduce the fish losses. And that is why the issue of post-harvest fish losses becomes very, very important in fisheries. Well, in Africa, fisheries is predominantly small scale in nature. But this does not preclude the fact that we have semi-industrial and industrial scale fisheries. And as far as semi-industrial and industrial scale fisheries is concerned, we have a problem of bycatch, which can be linked to post-harvest fisheries. But my presentation will dwell much more on the small-scale fisheries rather, where according to report by FAO, the small-scale fisheries in Africa generates about 24 billion United States dollars. So it's a huge kind of sector. Well, some of you might think that maybe in Africa fishery is very minimal. The thing is only that maybe the information doesn't reach you. If you talk, for instance, on the inland capture fishery, you will find that some of the countries in Africa are in the top 10 countries in the world in terms of inland capture fishery. So here we are talking about significant sector which is contributing greatly to the socio-economic development of the continent. That is one part. But the other side is, of course, the huge post-harvest losses. The thing you can see here, that is not a mountain, but is a pile-up of small sardine from Lake Victoria. And from this particular fishery, it's estimated that around 40 to 60 millions USD is being lost in one segment of the lake. That is not taking what is being lost in Kenya and Uganda, the riparian countries, is only in one country. So you can imagine the gravity of the problem. So on one hand, we have huge resources, but on the other hand, we have high post-harvest fish losses. We have different types of losses in small-scale fisheries in Africa, but mostly there is physical, quality, and market force losses. And the main reasons for physical loss is discarding after complete spoilage due to microbial action, lancidity, autolysis, those are chemical processes, but more important, time and temperature subjected to the processing along the supply chain is contributing greatly to the magnitude of the losses. Well, there are several technical interventions which have been made to reducing the losses, but the results have been mixed, simply because if you don't assess the losses, it's very, very difficult to get the priority right. And because of that, even the effort itself will not end up with a high return on investment. So we have a complicity in this particular situation because we have a very large number of different species, very large number of fishers, very large number of different fishing gears, different landing places, etc., which complicate the whole context. And it can get to the point where you can even surrender from taking action with regards to reducing the losses. But all the same, regardless of the complicity, we need to have post-harvest loss assessment going on and largely to inform policy-making process, which eventually creates enabling environment for actors, including increasing number of women, to secure great post-harvest benefits. If you don't have the data, if you can't get proper information, and if you don't get proper information, it's very, very difficult to come out with rational policies which are necessary in creating a neighboring business environment to curb the losses. Again, if you don't have the data, it's very, very difficult to integrate the post-harvest fish losses into the resource management matrix. You need the data so that it can go into the development of fishery management plan, which is a key tool in the sustainability of any resource. So we had no option but to embark on collecting the lost data so as finally to inform policy change. Initially, because of the magnitude of the complicities, we used it to think to generalize that post-harvest fish losses in Africa is 20%, around that much. But that was not enough to inform policy change. And as a matter of fact, it ended up with nothing. So we had to do something to address the issue. And at this particular juncture, I would like to recognize the initiative which was made by the Natural Resources Institute and the FAO by starting the ball. So we started back in 1990 to explore tangible fish process, post-harvest fish loss assessment methodologies. And today we are comfortable, at least we have achieved something tangible, as I will explain later. So, out of that effort, we came to a conclusion that in order to assess post-harvest fish loss, we needed to have 3 different methods, but taken in a combined mode. That is, we needed to have exploratory methods, to apply the exploratory methods in order to capture the socio-economic aspect of the whole thing, and more important, to enable us prioritize which are the most problematic areas that needs urgent attention. And also the essence of using exploratory method is to engage key stakeholders in the process, because without engaging key stakeholders, then the whole process will tend to lack legitimacy. And in fact, it will be very, very difficult to prioritize and promote effective policy change. But getting the results from exploratory method wasn't enough. It was found it important to complement it with the other quantitative methods, that is load tracking and the questionnaire loss assessment methods. These are 2 quantitative methods. That is the process which we adopted. The whole protocol of assessing loss followed that particular procedure, that is of planning for post-harvest fish losses, planning for loss assessment, and then the IFLAM, that is the exploratory methods. And then after that, we prioritize where is the most problematic areas for conducting load tracking, that is, you track the product along the value chain to assess the losses at each of the stages along the supply chain before conducting QLAM, that is questionnaire loss assessment method, in order to validate the data before report writing the other things. Simply for the exploratory method, it was a mixed method kind of sort, review of secondary data and the literature, observation of what is taking place by engaging the stakeholders, conducting a semi-structured interview, then develop a flow diagram before engaging key focus group. And it worked quite well. The major findings from the application of combined or mixed methods is that post-harvest fish losses occurs in all fisheries. That is the findings from the effort which was made in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Mali, Ghana, Nigeria, Malawi, and the other places. Again, the quality loss accounted for more than 70% of total loss. Physical loss seldom exceed 5%. There are limitations. Also, we noted that there are limitations to purely technical approach to reducing fish losses in small-scale fisheries. So that is the sample of the results from the assessment. I'm being told by the moderator that it's only 2 minutes left. But I want to mention that based on the findings, we came to agree upon that beside the primary drivers of losses, the microbial problem, the acidity, autolysis, there is an interface of marketing environment, which is actually prolonging the time where the product passes through the supply chain, which has to also be addressed. And the output of all the effort is actually the manuals. We produced 3 different manuals which can be downloaded from respective websites. And one of the manuals here. And it highlights all what I wanted it to tell, or what we actually found out as experience from the exercise, which was financed and assisted by FAO. Currently, the work is still in progress. We needed to conduct further analysis of fish losses during fishing prior to hauling nets. This is what is going on to complement what we have already achieved. And again, to analyze the interplay between the marketing environment and post-harvest fish losses in small-scale fisheries by scanning the micro and the macro marketing environment in order to capture in the model we are talking about. And thank you very much for your kind attention.
We have time for one question as Dr. Timmermans gets ready and they bring up his presentation.
She understood.
Well,
She understood.
it's understood that you get a question, yes. So, what was the most surprising thing that you found when you did your post-harvest loss assessment on fish?
Yeah, first of all, as I have said, the multiplicity or the complexity of losses in fisheries is different from the crops. Because in crops, you are dealing with tomato or maize or groundnuts or these kind of things. But when you are talking of fisheries, you have multitude of species. We have more than 600 different types of species, and each of the species behaves differently. We have multitude of fishers. We have multitude of fishing gears. We have multitude of landing places. So the complexity is very stunning. But anyhow, you have to go on assessing the loss, because that is the most important thing before you can inform the policy change. So it's interesting.
Thank you. Our next